Welcome back to another FPL video. Today we're discussing the best goalkeepers for FPL, and I'm going to include one provisional name in here. He hasn't joined the club yet, and he hasn't been added to FPL, of course, but I'm going to talk about one very likely signing for a big club and how much of an FPL option he could become in the next year or so. And I'm going to be discussing quite a few names in this list, and towards the end I'll be providing my thoughts on my absolute favourites and the ones I think that are almost must-haves at different price points. So if you're not enjoying this video, then be sure to smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and share this video around with those that love FPL. But let's jump straight into this, and it's all going to be about goalkeepers today. They are a bit underrated, they don't get the credit they deserve, but they will in this video. Straight off the bat, this is the goalkeeper I was referring to, the provisional one, who hasn't joined Man United yet, but it seems like only a matter of time before he does so. He was the best goalkeeper in last season's Champions League, and it's even reflected in UCL fantasy points, where he got 63, the most of any goalkeeper, and he was one of the highest scoring players overall. He kept 8 clean sheets and only conceded in 2 games in the knockout stages, including the final and I believe the second leg of the quarterfinals. He made 62 saves as well in Serie A, keeping 8 clean sheets in around 24-25 games. So there was a rotation, especially towards the end, with Handanovic, who is historically the #1 goalkeeper for Inter Milan. And of course, I can't talk about his ownership because he hasn't been added to the game yet, but I think he could become quite a template pick if he comes in at 5 million, which is my prediction. It has to be either 5 million or 5.5. And just like David De Gea last season, I think Onana will be priced at 5 million. You've got some decent fixtures in here, like Game Week 1 and 3, where I would expect Man United to keep clean sheets. In the other ones, though, probably not. They lost to Brighton in Game Week 1 last season at Old Trafford. They also lost to Arsenal away, and they drew to Tottenham away despite being 2-0 up. But I think Man United will improve on their travels this season. They certainly have to, in order to make that step to getting into second place and potentially competing for the title as well. But their home record is very impressive. They don't concede many goals. They keep a lot of clean sheets, and I think Onana could be a great bargain at 5 million. Next up is Kepa Arrizabalaga, who surprisingly became the #1 goalkeeper for Chelsea midway through the season, taking over Edouard Mendy. This first happened under Graham Potter and then under several managers since then. And I think Kepa could become or retain his spot as the #1, but it all depends on Chelsea. Do they sign another goalkeeper? And what does Mauricio Pochettino think as well? But Mendy has already left the club, and Kepa doesn't have any competition as things stand. But you would expect Chelsea to sign a goalkeeper at some stage, whether it's this season or in the campaigns to follow. But rumours do suggest that Pochettino is quite happy to start Kepa for the time being, and coming in at 5 million, he could also be a very decent choice, especially from Game Week 3 onwards, where Chelsea have some very good fixtures. His ownership is only 2.2%. He kept 9 clean sheets, made 91 saves, got 15 bonus points and over 100 FPL points, and I think that will only certainly increase because he's going to get more minutes from the get-go. Kepa kind of came a bit late as the #1 goalkeeper, but from this point onwards, you would expect him to be the starting goalkeeper for Chelsea from the get-go, and that's where Kepa could become a really good option at 5 million once again. But you've also got the likes of Ramsdale, potentially Onana, and others we'll discuss in today's video. So it's not that simple, but Kepa is certainly worth considering, as he was last season. Tottenham Hotspur were heavily linked with David Raya at the beginning of the transfer window, but once there were kind of rumours of Brentford asking for 35 to 40 million, Spurs started to call their interest, and in the end they signed Vicario from Empoli, and he had a pretty impressive season considering that Empoli were struggling in Serie A. He kept 7 clean sheets, almost made 100 saves, and made 1 penalty save out of 6 attempts, and he also prevented 2.07 goals, which is a pretty decent total. And the first 2 fixtures aren't great. I don't expect clean sheets, as I've mentioned in previous videos, but from Game Week 3 onwards, similar to Chelsea, I could see some on the horizon there for Spurs, especially Sheffield United at home. That's a golden opportunity, I think, for a clean sheet. But Spurs were very poor defensively last season, which was a surprise. We all expected an improvement upon their 4th place finish 2 seasons ago under Antonio Conte, and we thought they could become a solid unit defensively, but they still need more additions in the backline, I feel, until we can have confidence in Spurs keeping clean sheets and for the likes of Vicario to be an essential FPL asset. So as things stand, I think Vicario has potential. I think he can make a lot of saves and potentially get some odd bonus points, but I'm not too sure about him because Spurs still don't look quite right defensively. Jose Sar's only been in the Premier League for 2 seasons, and he's been very consistent FPL-wise. He got 148 points last season and 146 the campaign before. He comes in at 5 million. His ownership is 1.6%. He kept 11 clean sheets, made over 100 saves, and got 18 bonus points, which is all really impressive. The problem is that Wolves fans have this assumption that Bentley could become the #1 goalkeeper over time. He started the last 2 games last season, so Jose Sá might not be as nailed as we once thought. So that could be an issue, but I still think he's a really good goalkeeper option at 5 million. The problem as well with Wolves is that on their travels, they are absolutely horrible. Last season, they were in the bottom 3. They got battered multiple times as well against the likes of Brighton, losing 6-0. And whilst Wolves had already secured their Premier League status and had nothing to fight for, you still can't go into a Premier League game and show that performance and lose 6-0. So that is very concerning going into this season. The fixtures aren't great over the first 5 game weeks. Man United away is certainly not looking very easy. And you think Jose Sá's ceiling in games like that would be 4 points pretty much, so you're not expecting clean sheets there. But in the other games, especially Everton and Crystal Palace away, there could be 1 clean sheet there. But I have to say, with Jose Sá, I'd probably avoid for now because of the goalkeeper situation. I still think he'll be the #1 pick, but it's still a bit of a concern heading into game week 1, and the fixtures aren't too great. Wolves were very poor defensively last season, so because of all of those reasons, I'd probably avoid Jose Sá for now. But despite everything I've said, he's still going to get a lot of FPL points, assuming he gets the minutes because of his saves and bonus points potential. Jason Steele also came in quite late into the season, even later than Kepa Arrizabalaga. He comes in at 5 million. His ownership is 6.3%. He kept 6 clean sheets, made 37 saves, got 8 bonus points. And the main reason why he was introduced into the team is because of his distribution, which is very impressive and helps Brighton, gives them another dimension from their build-up from the back. They've got great fixtures for the first 3 game weeks, but long-term, they're not as good as some of the other goalkeepers and teams we have mentioned earlier. Now, Brighton could still have a bit of a problem with their goalkeeper situation, and Jason Steele isn't guaranteed to start from game week 1. I still think he will, but just like with Jose Sá, I'm not fully confident, and actually I have less confidence in Jason Steele being nailed than I do with Jose Sá. But let me know if you disagree down in the comment section below. You've still got Robert Sanchez, an international goalkeeper for Spain, and also Brighton are making other signings in that area. But I think Jason Steele will be the #1 goalkeeper, but I can't tell you with enough conviction there, and that's why I'd probably look to other 5 million goalkeepers such as Onana if he joins, and also some of the names coming up. In his first season for Aston Villa, Emi Martinez got 186 FPL points. He kept so many clean sheets on top of the saves and bonus points that he accrued, but he still got some decent totals last season. 135 FPL points, 15 bonus points, just shy of 100 saves. He kept 11 clean sheets, and his ownership is only 8%. And some fixtures are pretty tough, like Newcastle and Liverpool away, but the other games, like Everton at home, Crystal Palace at home even, look very enticing for a clean sheet, and you won't even rule out the likes of Burnley away, where Aston Villa would be the favourites in matches such as that. But I think Emi Martinez is the best way to cover Aston Villa defensively, but you might argue, no, that's not true, because you've got 4-point family defenders like Pau Torres, who we've discussed already in the best budget players, and you've also got a few others like Tyrone Mings and Matty Cash. So I don't think Emi Martinez is outright the favourite and also by far the best option. I think he'll get more FPL points than those 3 I've mentioned, but those 3 cost 0.5 million more, so that's going to be the issue as well. But I think one thing that really separates Emi Martinez from a lot of goalkeepers is how good he is in terms of saving penalties, and that is another tick that he provides for you. However, he wouldn't be my favourite 5 million option, but he certainly would be quite close to the top 3. But I have to say, for now, I'd probably avoid, and I think there are better fixtures for other goalkeepers. And also, you look at some of the other 5 million goalkeepers as well, playing for better teams, arguably, and I think they probably have a better chance of more clean sheets and more FPL points overall. Aaron Ramsdale is the template goalkeeper pick at the moment, but that could change a little bit once Onana, or if Onana, joins Man United. But he comes in at almost 30% ownership, and he also kept 14 clean sheets, made 94 saves, got 9 bonus points, and 143 FPL points overall. All pretty good numbers, but Arsenal faltered towards the end. Otherwise, Ramsdale could easily have had more clean sheets, maybe the most in the league, and also way more FPL points, and also maybe a few more bonus points along the way. But Ramsdale still had some good performances towards the end, even when Arsenal was struggling, but he also was part of the problem at times. You look at his pass against Southampton in the early seconds of that game, so he does have the odd mistake in him, but to be fair, name me one goalkeeper that hasn't made a major mistake in the Premier League. Even the likes of Alisson have done so. Ramsdale is a good goalkeeper. He has a lot to learn, especially in terms of making penalty saves. Whenever someone has a penalty, you never back Ramsdale to save it. That's one area where you can significantly improve, but the fixtures for Arsenal are fantastic, even when you consider that in the first 9 game weeks they face Spurs, Man United and Man City at home. The other games look really good on paper, even Everton away, but I have to say, despite the fact that it's marked as a green on the FDR, Arsenal always struggle at Goodison Park. They haven't won there since Arsene Wenger has left the club, and that was 5 years ago. So bear that in mind. But in the other games, I would expect some clean sheets for Arsenal, and I also certainly expect them to tighten up defensively in home matches. That was a big weakness for them last season. They conceded far too many goals at home, even in the early stages of games like against Southampton and Bournemouth. Within 10-30 seconds, they're already 1-0 down. That has to change this season, especially if they want to push on for the title once again. But Ramsdale is the template pick for a reason. I would recommend him, but there's also some other goalkeepers you should consider at least, and I don't think Ramsdale is a set and forget and absolutely essential, because Arsenal could still have some of the issues that they had last season, and that could be their downfall. Ederson is always a popular FPL option. You know, he comes in at 14.5% ownership, very similar numbers to when I discussed him this time last year, but he's not really worth it FPL-wise. Yes, there will be the odd occasion where Man City keep 15 to 20 clean sheets and Ederson will be kind of a set-and-forget option, and he would be pretty good FPL-wise, but he only got 121 points last season, only 11 clean sheets, 46 saves. I mean, 46 saves, that is really low. 8 bonus points, and it does show how much Man City dominate games most of the time, but that isn't a really good thing for the goalkeeper. It doesn't bode well FPL-wise for the likes of Ederson, and you've even got Ortega, who's a really good goalkeeper, sitting on the bench, and he's always ready there. If Ederson gets an injury or if he's maybe slacking in training, you could expect Ortega to come in, as he did on certain occasions last season, like in the FA Cup final, and Ederson could be in trouble. But you would expect Ederson to retain the number 1 spot, and over the first 8 game weeks, Man City have the best fixtures, period. You would expect them to win the vast majority of those games and also keep clean sheets in maybe 4 or 5 of them. So Ederson remains a good pick, but because of the lack of saves potential and also with how much Man City dominate games, I think there's just far better value to be had in the goalkeeper position. It's quite surprising to see this, but Nick Pope didn't even make 100 saves. But the thing is, Newcastle was such a unit defensively that Nick Pope remained a fantastic FPL option, and he kept 14 clean sheets, got 14 bonus points, 87 saves is still a decent total, and he got 157 FPL points overall. So he was right up there with David De Gea and David Raya, and he now comes in at 5.5 million. But I would avoid, because you look at the opening 5 fixtures, you've got Man City and Liverpool there, even the other games like Aston Villa, Brighton and Brentford, they aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination, and I'd only expect 2 clean sheets maximum from the first 5 game weeks, and Nick Pope is a good option still, but at 5.5 million and with those fixtures, I think there are better players to have in the goalkeeper position. And also for Newcastle defensively, you've got Sven Botman at 4.5 million, and I think that's enough to start the season with. Despite being priced at 5.5 million, a bit similar to Nick Pope, I still think Alisson is worth that price tag, and Liverpool had a pretty poor season for their standards in the last campaign, but Alisson still got 162 FPL points, 15 bonus points, 107 saves, and 14 clean sheets. All highly impressive numbers, and I still think he justifies that price tag. But because for goalkeepers you tend to aim for those 4.5 million to 5 million goalkeeper options, Alisson isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's why his ownership is just under 10%. But for fixtures such as Bournemouth at home in Game Week 2, the likes of Draft Hound do rank Liverpool as having the best chance of keeping a clean sheet. So Alisson could certainly keep 2 or 3 clean sheets in the opening 5 games, despite the fact that Chelsea away, Aston Villa at home and Newcastle away aren't easy fixtures. You still think the likes of Liverpool could do really well and get some clean sheets along the way and win the majority of their matches. We're all expecting Liverpool to bounce back after a disappointing season, and you would expect them to finish in the top 4, but it's going to be a very competitive season and there will be some surprises along the way, but Alisson will always be up there as one of the highest scoring FPL goalkeepers. I talked about Pickford and some of the other 4.5 million goalkeepers in the best budget players video, the part 1 anyway, and Jordan Pickford has some really good fixtures for the first 4 game weeks. He has a decent saves potential. He always gets around 120 plus FPL points. He can even get some bonus points along the way. 10 is very impressive for a 4.5 million goalkeeper, but I don't trust Everton, as I discussed in that video, and I would rather go for another 4.5 million goalkeeper that we're going to talk about very soon, and also some of the 5 million goalkeeper options like Ramsdale and even possibly Emi Martinez. I'm expecting Aston Villa to be impressive once again, and whilst they might not finish 6th, they might even finish below that, I still think they might keep more clean sheets, and Emi Martinez will get more FPL points this time round. But Pickford remains a good option. He's going to be quite popular, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him at 20% or more ownership, but I'd still probably go for other options from better teams in the Premier League. I'm a bit more open-minded to Johnston because he was really impressive towards the tail end of last season. I even had him, I think, on my free hit, and he provided me 10 FPL points in a game week, so I was very happy with him, and he's got that high ceiling. And all the numbers you see on the left-hand side won't be impressive because he came in quite late into the season, even later than the likes of Jason Steele and Kepa Arrizabalaga, who we've discussed earlier in this video. But I think Johnston could be a solid option defensively, and perhaps even better than the likes of Mark Gay, Tyrick Mitchell, and any other Crystal Palace defender like Anderson. The fixtures are a bit mixed bag over the first 5 game weeks, and Crystal Palace are kind of hit and miss. On their day, they can beat anybody, but they could also lose to anyone on their day because they're such an inconsistent team, and that's why, of course, they tend to finish around 13th, 14th, but they can give any big club problems. They've even got multiple victories over the likes of Man City over the years, and I think Johnston is a solid goalkeeper option at 4.5 million. Not my favourite, but still one of the best, regardless. Bernd Leno is a solid goalkeeper, and he had a great season for Fulham in the last campaign. He got 142 FPL points, he got 17 bonus points, all really good numbers. He made 144 saves and kept 8 clean sheets. Some of the fixtures coming up are terrible, like Arsenal and Man City, but when you look at games like Luton Town at home and Everton away, I think Leno could do really well in those games with a clean sheet and possibly some save points on top of it. So Leno at 4.5 million will always be one of the best goalkeeper options, and I'm quite happy he doesn't come in at 5 million, even though he probably deserves to because of the amount of FPL points he got last season. But despite how good he is, there's one goalkeeper who I think, if he becomes the number 1 goalkeeper for his new club, I think he's probably the best goalkeeper option, period. We've already discussed him in a previous video, but I think he's worth highlighting once again. You've probably guessed it by now, I'm referring to Flekken, who could be a bargain at 4.5 million if David Raya leaves the club, because Flekken would almost certainly become the number 1 choice if that happens. David Raya got the most FPL points of any goalkeeper last season with 166. I think Flekken could get 140 plus, and at 4.5 million, you can't ask for too much more. He comes in around 3% ownership, but that will almost certainly increase, especially if David Raya leaves the club very soon. He kept 8 clean sheets for Freiburg last season, making over 100 saves. He didn't save a single penalty, but it's really difficult to save penalties, and you could forgive him for not doing so. But the fixtures are great. Tottenham at home and Newcastle away aren't really too appealing, but the other games in between, and also going up until game week 8 or 9, Flekken will do a very good job for you, assuming he is the number 1 goalkeeper, and I believe he will. Most Brentford fans will also tell you the same thing. But let me know who you think is the best goalkeeper from all the options we've discussed. If I had to make a quick ranking, Flekken would be first and Ramsdale would be second. And even David Raya, if he stayed at the club and is expected to be the number 1 goalkeeper for Brentford, he would still be right up there as one of the best goalkeeper options for FPL. So let me know your thoughts. As I said, share this video around with those that love FPL, and be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships, Discord server, and the FPL League. All of that is there. I wish you all the best of luck for the upcoming FPL season. Enjoy the summer break, and I'll see you next time.